Thank God this incredible HFY masterpiece found you today. Witness the legends starting now. Commander Vel stood at the head of the briefing room, his three eyes blinking in sequence, a nervous habit he had developed over 20 cycles of military service. The holographic display behind him flickered to life, casting an ominous red glow across the faces of his squad. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were Corax Void Reapers, the finest, most decorated, most absurdly overconfident warriors in the entire Galactic coalition. They had stormed black holes. They had wrestled plasma eels on Torfin Prime. They had survived dinner with the diplomatic corps, which, let us be honest, was arguably worse than actual combat. But today, Vel watched their mandibles twitch with something he had never seen before: fear. "All right, listen up," Vel began, his voice carrying that special tone reserved for delivering catastrophically bad news. "High Command has assigned us a retrieval mission." Sergeant Cleth, a four-armed veteran with more scars than sense, leaned forward. "Retrieval, Commander? We are Void Reapers. We do not fetch things. We conquer things. We destroy things. We occasionally redecorate things with plasma fire." "Yes. Well," Vel clicked his mandibles together, "you are about to fetch something from Sector 7. The room went silent. Not the comfortable silence of professional soldiers awaiting orders. No, this was the silence of creatures who had just realized their life insurance premiums were about to become very, very relevant. "Sector 7? Lieutenant Rex whispered, her vocal sac deflating. "You mean the zone? The actual, literal, universally acknowledged death trap that we used to scare children into eating their nutrient paste? That would be the one, yes." Vel pulled up a three-dimensional map of the sector. It looked like someone had taken a perfectly good region of space and then asked a sadistic cartographer to mark every possible way to die horribly. Toxic atmosphere? Check. Acid rain? Double check. Predators with 16 different ways to dissolve your internal organs? Oh, you better believe that is a check. The zone had a reputation. 347 missions had gone in. 12 had come back, and those 12 survivors had immediately retired, changed their name, and opened quiet little shops selling yarn on peaceful outer rim worlds where the most dangerous thing was an overpriced latte. "The equipment we need to retrieve," Vel continued, ignoring the collective groan from his squad, "is a Class 7 sensor array that crashed there 6 months ago. High Command wants it back. Apparently, it contains data worth more than all our lives combined." "How comforting," Cleth muttered. "What is the projected survival rate for this mission?" Vel's middle eye twitched. "The computers estimate somewhere between 4 and 7%. And the other 93%? Extremely dead." "How extremely?" The report used the phrase molecular dissociation 5 times. The squad exchanged glances. Molecular dissociation was not the fun kind of death. That was the kind of death where your descendants could not even collect your remains because your remains had become part of the local atmosphere. "But wait," Vex said, her voice climbing an octave. "There is more, is there not? You have that 'I am about to make this exponentially worse' look." Vel nodded slowly. It pulled up another image on the display. It was a thermal scan of the zone taken from a long-range probe. Right in the center, in the absolute worst, most lethally hostile part of that nightmarish landscape, was a heat signature, a structure, and movement. "Someone," Vel said carefully, "is living there." The silence that followed could have suffocated a supernova. "Living there?" Cleth repeated, his voice flat. "In the zone? The place where atmosphere eats through hull plating? The place where it rains acid? The place where the soil itself is classified as a war crime in 47 systems?" "Correct. Someone is living there voluntarily?" "All evidence suggests yes." Vex leaned back in her chair so hard it creaked. "What kind of creature, what kind of absolute nightmare beast from the darkest corner of evolutionary mistakes could possibly survive in that environment?" Vel hesitated. He pulled up the final image. It was grainy, taken from maximum safe distance, but it was clear enough. A bipedal figure, 2 arms, 2 legs, relatively small, almost fragile-looking. Preliminary scans, Vel said quietly. It is human. The room exploded with noise. Laughter, nervous clicking, and several very creative curse words in languages that had not been spoken in millennia. A human? Cleth was wheezing now. Those little pink things from that backwater spiral arm? Those creatures live on a paradise world. They have flowers and sunshine and liquid water that does not burn. What is one doing in the zone? Vel closed all 3 of his eyes and sighed. That, he said, is exactly what we are going to find out. The transport shuttle rattled like a dying refrigerator as it descended through the upper atmosphere of Sector 7. Vel gripped his command console, watching the hull integrity readings drop with each passing second. 14% degradation, 18, 22, and they hadn't even reached the ground yet. "Remind me again," Cleth said from his seat, checking his environmental suit for the 9th time in as many minutes. "Why we volunteered for this?" "We did not volunteer," the kite said him, her own suit seals hissing as she double-checked every connection. "The commander volunteered us. There is a significant difference I feel it is important to clarify." Vel interjected, not taking his eyes off the sensors, "that I also did not volunteer. High Command voluntold all of us, which is a beautiful military tradition, meaning we have no choice whatsoever." The shuttle broke through the cloud layer and the zone revealed itself in all its horrifying glory. It was, to put it mildly, aggressively hostile to life. The landscape stretched out below them like the fever dream of a particularly disturbed planetary geologist. The ground was not brown or gray like sensible planets. No, it was a mottled purple and green, which, according to the sensors, meant the soil had a pH level of 2.3. For context, that was more acidic than the stomach fluids of a pterosaur slug, and those things could digest starship hulls. Rain fell in sheets, except it wasn't water. The chemical analysis scrolling across Vel's screen suggested it was a delightful cocktail of sulfuric compounds, dissolved metals, and something the computer had labeled as unknown corrosive agent. Approach with extreme caution and possibly a last will and testament. Lightning cracked across the sky, except it was green, not the fun green of bioluminescent algae, the green of ionized toxic gas igniting in the upper atmosphere. "I have changed my mind," Cleth announced. "I would like to be anywhere else. A black hole, a supernova, the annual budget meeting, literally anywhere." "Noted and denied," Vel replied. "Prepare for landing." The shuttle touched down on the least deadly-looking patch of ground they could find, which was like choosing the friendliest-looking shark in a feeding frenzy. The landing struts hissed and began dissolving immediately. Hull integrity at 61%. The computer announced in that calm, pleasant voice that computers used when delivering catastrophic news. Estimated time to critical failure, 17 minutes. 17 minutes? Rex's voice climbed another octave. "We're supposed to trek through this nightmare, find the sensor array, and get back in 17 minutes? "No," Vel said, standing and checking his personal shield generator. "We have 17 minutes until the shuttle becomes a very expensive coffin. We are not coming back to it." The squad stared at him. "We're walking out?" Clef asked slowly. "High Command has authorized an extraction team to pick us up at the northern perimeter at approximately 8 kilometers from here." "Oh, wonderful. A light stroll through hell. How refreshing." They descended the ramp, and within 3 steps, Vel understood why the survival rate was so low. His boots, military grade, designed to withstand orbital bombardment, began smoking. The air itself felt wrong, pressing against his environmental suit. It was personally offended by his existence. Vex took readings with her handheld scanner. Atmospheric composition is 62% toxic, 31% corrosive, and 7% what I can only describe as aggressively malicious. Temperature is fluctuating between 40 and 90 degrees. Radiation levels are, let me see, enough to sterilize a small moon. And someone lives here, Cleth muttered, scanning the horizon. Voluntarily? They moved forward in formation. weapons drawn, though Rel suspected shooting the environment would be spectacularly unhelpful. Every few meters, something new tried to kill them. Plants that spat acid when they got too close. Geysers that erupted without warning, spraying superheated toxic sludge. The ground itself occasionally opened up into sinkholes filled with what the scanner described as liquefied death. 2 kilometers in, they saw it. A structure barely visible through the haze of toxic fog. Is that a tent? Rel zoomed in with her optical enhancers. Is that a tent? It was indeed a tent. Not a fortified bunker, not an armored habitat dome. A tent. The kind of flimsy, recreational, let us go camping and enjoy nature tent that civilized species used on planets where the wildlife did not actively practice chemical warfare. This cannot be real, Cleth whispered. This is a hallucination. The toxic air is making us see things, but it was real. And next to the tent was a chair. A folding chair, and what appeared to be a small fire pit with something cooking over it. That's smoke, Frel said, his voice distant. Is that cooking smoke? According to my scanner, Frax replied, sounding like she was questioning her entire education. Yes, someone is grilling. Grilling in the zone where the air is poison. Apparently, they found cover behind a large rock formation approximately 50 meters from the tent. The rock immediately began dissolving their gloves, but it was the best option available, which said everything about their current situation. All right, Rel said, trying to project confidence he absolutely did not feel. We need a plan. Do we approach? Do we call out? Do we run screaming back the way we came and claim the mission was impossible? Before anyone could answer, KFT grabbed Vrel's arm. Commander, movement! A figure emerged from the tent. Human. Definitely human. Male? Possibly, though. Vrel's hemobiology was rusty. Wearing pants. Just pants. No shirt. No environmental suit. No breathing apparatus. Just pants and what appeared to be footwear humans called sandals. The human stretched, yawned, and walked over to the fire. He poked at whatever was cooking, nodded in satisfaction, and then, in a moment that would haunt Vrel for the rest of his life, the human looked up at the acid rain falling from the sky, smiled, and tilted his head back to let it hit his face. He is showering in acid rain, Vrax said, her voice breaking. He is treating acid rain like a pleasant afternoon drizzle. I want to go home, Cleth announced. Right now, immediately, I have never wanted anything more in my entire life. A crack of lightning struck nearby, and the human glanced at it with the mild interest one might give to a slightly unusual bird. Then he went back to his cooking. We need better intel, Vrel decided, pulling out the long-range observation equipment. We watch, we learn, we figure out what we're dealing with before we make contact. And if what we are dealing with is an invincible death monster, Cleth asked. Vrel adjusted the scanner and focused on the human, who was now humming what might have been a song. Then we pray to every deity in the known galaxy, Vrel said quietly, that it does not notice us. For the next 4 hours, Commander Vel and his squad watched Marcus Webb go about his day, and with each passing minute, their understanding of reality crumbled like a cookie in a hydraulic press. He's making breakfast, Vrax said, her voice hollow. He just picked berries from that bush, the one our scanner flagged as toxic level 9 out of 10. Maybe he's going to process them somehow, Cleth suggested hopefully. Boil them, filter out the toxins, render them safe through some advanced human technology we do not know about. Marcus popped 3 berries directly into his mouth and chewed with evident satisfaction. Or he's just eating them raw, Cleth continued, his voice now devoid of all hope. That works too, I suppose. Why would you need to be concerned about neurotoxins when you are a human? Vrel adjusted the observation scanner, bringing the image into sharper focus. Marcus was now preparing what appeared to be a beverage. He took a canteen, walked over to a small stream running past his camp, and filled it with water. That was, according to their sensors, somewhere between industrial runoff and liquefied nightmare. The water composition Vrax read from her display, her mandibles trembling, includes sulfur compounds, heavy metals, trace amounts of radioactive isotopes, and something the computer has labeled as "do not touch ever." Marcus took a long drink, sighed contentedly, and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "That's it," Clef said, setting down his scanner. "I'm having a breakdown, right here, right now. My entire military career, my understanding of biology, physics, and common sense, all gone, deleted. I'm rebooting my brain." "Stay focused," Vrel commanded, though his own voice lacked conviction. "We need to understand what we are dealing with." What they were dealing with, as it turned out, was somehow worse than they imagined. Around mid-morning, by Vrel's chronometer, Marcus decided to go for a walk. Not a cautious, strategic patrol, a casual stroll. He wandered through vegetation that was flagged as Class 4 hazardous, humming that strange tune. Plants that had been actively trying to kill Vrax's squad earlier seemed to lean away from Marcus as if they understood the food chain and knew where they ranked. Then the predator showed up. It crawled out from behind a rock formation, 6 legs, mandibles dripping with venom, a segmented body covered in natural armor plating. The scanner identified it as a razorback stalker, an apex predator with a documented kill rate of 100%. These things hunted in the zone because everything else was not deadly enough. "He's dead," Vrax whispered. "There is no way to survive that encounter without heavy weapons." Marcus turned, saw the stalker, and his face did something that Vrel's translator implant struggled to interpret. A smile. Humans smiled at apex predators? "Hey there, buddy," Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the toxic landscape. "Come here, boy." The stalker approached, and Vrel's hand moved to his sidearm instinctively. But the creature did not attack. It lowered its head and made a sound that could only be described as a purr. A purr? An apex predator was purring? Marcus scratched behind what might have been the thing's auditory sensors. "Good boy, yes you are. Who is a terrifying instrument of death? You are, yes you are." "I have lost my mind," Cleth announced. "This is not real. I'm in a medical base somewhere, hallucinating from toxic exposure." The stalker rolled over, all 6 legs in the air, while Marcus rubbed its armored belly. "He has domesticated a razorback stalker," Vrel said, his voice distant. "He's turned an unstoppable killing machine into a pet. How? Why? What evolutionary path leads to this?" But Marcus was not done destroying their sanity. After his walk, with his new 6-legged friend trailing behind him like a puppy, Marcus returned to camp and noticed something that made him light up with what appeared to be joy. The toxic rain had formed a small pool near his tent, a bubbling, steaming collection of liquid that was reading off their sensors like a war crime. Marcus looked at this pool of acid and corrosive chemicals, turned to his stalker companion and said, "You know what? It's been a hot morning. I'm going for a swim." "No," Vrex said simply. No, he's not. He wouldn't." Marcus removed his sandals and waded into the pool. "He is," Cleth whispered, his voice breaking. "He actually is." Marcus submerged himself completely, surfaced, and let out a whoop of what could only be interpreted as pleasure. "Now that's refreshing," he called out to no one in particular, or perhaps to the universe itself, which Vrax suspected was too terrified to respond. The stalker sat at the pool's edge, making that purring sound again, occasionally dipping a leg in the acid water and pulling it back out. "Even the apex predator will not go in," Vrax observed. "The creature that fears nothing in this zone will not enter that pool, but the human is doing laps." For lunch, Marcus prepared what he called tea. Vrax watched through the scanner as the human picked leaves from a plant that was classified as extremely lethal. Do not approach. Marcus crushed them, added them to his radioactive stream water, and let it steep in the heat of the toxic air. Then he drank it. "It probably tastes terrible," Cleth said desperately, grasping for any shred of normalcy. "He's suffering, but hiding it. That must be it." Marcus smacked his lips and poured himself a second cup. "Okay," Vrax said, setting down all her equipment. "I have a theory. Humans are not a species. They are a cosmic joke. The universe made them as a test to see what happens when you remove the survival instinct and replace it with audacity. That's not a theory, Cleth replied. That's the only logical explanation. Vel stood up, determination settling over him like a shroud. I'm making contact. Both his subordinates grabbed his arms. Commander, no, Brax pleaded. We don't know what he's capable of. We don't know what humans can do. What if he's hostile? What if he's friendly? Cleth added, somehow making that sound worse. What if he invites us for tea? That tea he made from poison leaves and radioactive stream water. I cannot drink that, Commander. I will die. We came here for answers, Vel said firmly, and the only way to get answers is to talk to him. Or we could observe for another few days, gather data, maybe send a strongly worded questionnaire via probe, but Vel was already checking his environmental suit seals. You two stay here, maintain comms. If I die, tell High Command that humans are not to be trifled with. When you die, Vrax corrected, sadly. Fine, when I die, record everything. Marcus seemed genuinely confused by the question. I mean, we have got places on Earth that make this look like a resort. Australia, for instance. Ever heard of it? No. Continent full of things that want to kill you. Spiders the size of dinner plates. Snakes with enough venom to drop an elephant. Jellyfish that cause psychological torture before death. Birds that literally kick you to death. And that is just the wildlife. Do not even get me started on the weather. Cyclones, bushfires, floods, droughts, sometimes all in the same week. Rel's three eyes blinked in sequence, a reboot of his comprehension systems. And humans live there. Oh, tons of humans. Great place, actually. Lovely beaches. Lovely beaches, Rel whispered, on a continent of death. Then you've got Death Valley in North America, Marcus continued, warming to his topic. Hottest place on Earth, temperatures that cook your brain. Or Siberia, coldest place, where the air itself can freeze your lungs. Or the Amazon, where every plant, insect, and animal has evolved specifically to be as lethal as possible. Or underwater, we have got ocean trenches so deep and hostile that we know more about outer space than we do about them. And you vacation here? Rel said, gesturing at the toxic wasteland around them. Because it is relaxing. Exactly, and Marcus beamed. See, you get it. No traffic, no crowds, no tourists taking selfies everywhere. Just me, the occasional predator that wants belly rubs, and peace and quiet. Plus, the rain here is nothing compared to acid rain back home. Industrial pollution, you know? We kind of did that to ourselves. Through the comm, Vox's voice came through, shaking. Commander, is he saying that humans voluntarily poisoned their own planet and then just continued living there? It sounds like that is what he is saying. Yes, Vel replied quietly. I am updating my entire threat assessment of humanity. Cleth, interrupted right now in real time, uploading to command, marking Earth as do not engage under any circumstances. Marcus leaned forward, his expression friendly and open. So, what brings you guys out here anyway? You said you were on a mission. We are retrieving equipment, Vel explained, still processing the tsunami of horrifying information. A sensor array that crashed in this sector. Our command considers it valuable enough to risk our lives. Oh yeah, I saw that, Marcus said brightly. Big piece of tech, right? About 200 meters that way. He pointed casually in a direction that Rel's scanner confirmed was correct. I moved it closer to my camp. Actually thought about taking it apart to see how it worked, but I figured it probably belonged to someone. You moved it? Rel said faintly. Our sensor array that weighs approximately 8 tons? Good workout, Marcus patted his stomach. Gotta stay in shape on vacation, you know, otherwise you get soft. He moved 8 tons of equipment, Clef's voice came through, now just a series of broken syllables, for exercise because he might get soft. Hey, you guys want to stay for dinner? Marcus asked, standing up and stretching. I caught this local creature earlier. Kind of looks like a cross between your stalker over there and a lobster. Figured I would grill it up. Should have plenty for everyone. Rel stood, quickly, his survival instincts finally overriding his diplomatic training. That is incredibly generous, but we need to retrieve our equipment and report back to command. Immediately. Right now, as fast as physically possible. Sure. Marcus walked over to a tarp and pulled it off, revealing the pristine sensor array. Here you go. Hope it still works. I tried to be careful with it. The equipment was undamaged, perfectly intact. This human had casually relocated 8 tons of sensitive military technology through a death world and had not even scratched it. Thank you, Vel said, signaling his team to approach. You've been extremely helpful. No problem, Marcus smiled, that terrifying, friendly smile again. Hey, if you guys ever want a vacation here, let me know. I'm thinking about setting up a second camp deeper in the zone. Found this crater that's even more intense. Should be fun. Fun? Vel repeated numbly. Yes, fun. We will certainly keep that in mind. As his squad emerged from cover and began securing the sensor array, Marcus waved goodbye like they were old friends parting after a pleasant afternoon. Take care, Marcus called out. Safe travels and seriously, try Earth sometime. Beautiful planet. Might kill you, but that's part of the charm. The extraction shuttle arrived exactly on schedule, and Rel's squad loaded the sensor array with the kind of desperate efficiency that came from wanting to leave a place very, very badly. Not one of them spoke during the entire flight back to the command ship. They simply sat in silence, staring at nothing, processing what they had witnessed. Cleth was rocking slightly in his seat. Rex had her face in her hands. Rel just stared out the viewport at the stars, wondering if anything in the universe made sense anymore. 12 hours later, Rel stood in the briefing room of the Coalition command ship Relentless, facing a semicircle of high command officers representing 17 different species. Admiral Thornick, a Quellian with enough metals to sink a small spacecraft, leaned forward with his 6 arms folded. Commander Rel, Thornick began, his voice carrying the weight of authority, your report states that a human is living in Sector 7 voluntarily for recreation. That is correct, sir. And this human has been there for 3 weeks with no protective equipment beyond, and I'm reading this correctly, pants and sandals? Correct, sir. And he drinks the local water, which our analysis confirms would kill most known species within minutes. He does, sir. He also makes tea with it. A murmur rippled through the assembled officers. General Tresh, a Vathian war hero with combat experience spanning 4 decades, spoke up. Commander, are you suggesting humans are immune to toxins? Not immune, sir, Vel chose his words carefully. More like aggressively indifferent. The human Marcus Webb acknowledged the environment was harsh. He described it as having quirks. He then compared it favorably to his home planet. Favorably? Admiral Thornick's eye stalks extended in disbelief. He compared a Class 12 death world favorably to Earth? Yes, sir. He indicated that Earth contains multiple regions more hostile than the zone. He specifically mentioned a place called Australia, which he described as, and I quote, a continent full of things that want to kill you, end quote. He then said, it has lovely beaches. The silence in the room was profound. Let me understand this clearly, General Crush said, slowly. Humans evolved on a death world, survived, and then built civilizations there? It appears so, sir. Furthermore, Mr. Webb indicated that humans have poisoned parts of their own planet through industrial activity and simply continued living there. They poisoned themselves? Another officer, an Andrelian ambassador, stood up and did not evacuate? No, sir. According to Mr. Webb, they just adapted. Admiral Thornick pulled up a star chart locating Earth's position in a distant spiral arm. Intelligence. What do we know about human military capabilities? An intelligence officer, a nervous plenie named Sketch, consulted his datapad. Sir, until this report, we classified them as minimal threat. Pre-warp civilization, fragmented governments, still using chemical propulsion. But, if Commander Vel's report is accurate, we may need to reassess everything. Reassess is putting it, Cleth spoke up from behind Vel, his voice still carrying the trauma of the mission. Sir, with respect, I watched this human pet an apex predator. I watched him swim in acid runoff. I watched him drink radioactive water and smile. And he said he was on vacation because work was too stressful. Too stressful? Thornick repeated. His work on a death world was too stressful, so he vacationed on a worse death world to relax? Yes, sir. The Admiral turned to his staff. Get me every piece of intelligence we have on Earth. Population, distribution, technological development, everything. I want to know what kind of species we're dealing with. Sir, the intelligence officer replied, tapping frantically at his console, Earth's population is approximately 8 billion humans. They occupy every continent on the planet, including the hostile regions. Commander Vel mentioned they live at the equator, where temperatures exceed 50 degrees. They live at the poles, where temperatures drop to -60. They live on tectonic fault lines near active volcanoes, in flood zones, and in areas with regular catastrophic weather events. 8 billion? Kresh whispered. 8 billion of these creatures. Furthermore, the intelligence officer continued, his voice rising with each discovery, they engage in recreational activities that include jumping out of aircraft for fun, climbing mountains that kill regularly, diving to depths that would crush our submarines, and something called extreme sports, which appears to be deliberately dangerous activities they do for entertainment. Admiral Thornick closed all 6 of his eyes. Recommended threat assessment. Sir, the intelligence officer said, carefully, I recommend we classify humans as galaxy-level threat category unknown, not because they're hostile, but because they don't seem to understand what hostility means. They treat death worlds like vacation destinations. If they ever develop faster than light travel and decide to expand, they're